She's the mother of Thor, the wife of Odin, and most importantly, she's a cat person. We're talking about Frigga. Hi, I'm Nando, and in this series, we take a character from Marvel Comics. We talk about their history, their power set, their personality, and we give you some reading recommendations. And this is all because this week, this character is being introduced into the collectible card game, Marvel Snap. Let's talk about Frigga. This one's very interesting because, like all the other characters we're going to be talking about this season, Frigga is based very loosely on Norse mythology. But this is where it gets a little tricky. Frigga, or Freyja, which, okay, so this is a little complicated. From what I understand, there are two different gods. There is Frigg and Freyja. Frigg is the wife of Odin. She is the goddess of marriage. Freyja is the god of beauty and love. I would say she kind of fills the role that Aphrodite fills in Greek mythology, and then Frigg fills the role that Hera fills in Greek mythology. However, there's a lot of different scholarship about whether or not these were actually the same god in certain stories, or if it's kind of interchangeable. They definitely serve different purposes, but because the Norse mythology doesn't focus as much on the women, but according to different scholars, in this video I watched by Jackson Crawford, who seems to know what he's talking about, a lot of it has to do with the fact that there just is not a lot of material about either of these goddesses in the Norse books with all the poetry about the gods. Either way, in Marvel Comics, a character named Frigga, who sometimes goes by Freyja, is the mother of Thor and also kind of maybe the goddess of fertility, although that will change eventually. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because that part is pretty complicated. But okay, so while Frigga existed for a while in Marvel Comics, she didn't really do too much until after the final Ragnarok story that we talked about in our Searcher video. All the Asgardian gods, including Frigga, were dead for several years. They came back and were sort of rebooted. Many of their personalities and even their designs were rethought. Frigga specifically had a lot more depth. First of all, she formed a triad of goddesses with Gaia and Idun, known as the All-Mother, after the Fear Itself event, and their group took Odin's spot for a while. They're big players in the Loki Agent of Asgard series, where they send Loki on missions. In the end of that story, this alternate version of Loki that is working with Hela summons the Midgard Serpent, and the All-Mother needs to sacrifice herself to banish the Midgard Serpent back to Hell. So Frigga is dead. But, and this is happening right around 2015, she travels to Valhalla because Odin's like, we gotta do another Ragnarok. And they fought Hell for a little, but this was ended by the incursion of Earth 1610 and the start of the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars. But after that was over and everything relaunched, Frigga took more of the spotlight because Thor lost his ability to wield Mjolnir, and Jane Foster picked up the hammer and became the new Mighty Thor. This was originally a mystery, but eventually it was revealed that it was Jane Foster. And Frigga became an ally for Jane Foster, especially because Odin did not like that Jane Foster was doing this Thor thing. So Frigga was the one that was advocating on behalf of Jane Foster and standing up to Odin in a way that we really hadn't seen before. While this is going on, Malekith the Accursed, who we will talk about in a future video, created the Dark Council, started waging war against the Ten Realms, and Freyja used Loki as a secret agent to infiltrate his team, but Loki was forced to stab Freyja with a poisoned dagger, which made her fall into a coma. Now this was all part of Loki's plan because he needed to prove himself to Malekith, and also this would get her off of the board so Malekith would not kill her, but still, Freyja was in a coma for a little bit. Okay, so for reading recommendations for Frigga, I want to focus on some more recent Thor books. So let's start with Mighty Thor Volume 3, Issue 5. Shows a little bit of Frigga and the plan that she sets up with Loki to infiltrate Malekith. Also, the betrayal of Loki is an important moment in Frigga's history. It's written by Jason Aaron with art by Russell Dodderman, Matthew Wilson, and VC's Joe Sabino. At the end of Jane Foster's Mighty Thor run, Malekith, I think, resurrects a Thor villain called the Mangong. This is an old Thor enemy. It is a monster made of the sum total of the hatred of a billion beings that were once killed by the Asgardians. So it's sort of like how in Thor Ragnarok, Hela had this whole like, oh, look at all these terrible things we've done. This is the consequences of that coming home. Jane Foster's like, Odin, we gotta do something. You're being a real jerk. Also, Kull is involved in a way that's unhelpful. But Jane Foster gives a big speech about how she's gotta protect Asgard, and that wakes up Freyja from her coma. The All-Mother is able to take control of the Destroyer and use that to fight the Mangog for a little bit. And for reading recommendation 2, I want to say Mighty Thor Volume 1, Issue 702. So this is technically comes after Volume 2 because it's a continuation of Volume 1. It is unnecessarily confusing. This is a really cool moment. This is when Frigga comes back to life after Jane Foster gives her speech. It's written by Jason Aaron with art by Russell Dodderman, Matthew Wilson, and VC's Joe Sabino. And this led into the next big Thor event, and one of my favorite comic events at the time, War of the Realms, which is Malekith taking his Dark Council, all of the Thor villains from before, and bringing them to take over the 9 realms. And when this story started, because of how much chaos the Mangog did, all the Asgardians were in the Bronx in an apartment. Pretty insane. But Freyja was a big part of the fighting. She fought off the Dark Elf assassins. Laufey attacked her, Loki intervened, but then was devoured by Laufey, which was very upsetting for her. But it was a nice heroic sacrifice and end to his arc. We'll talk about the end of War of the Realms in a future video. But after that, Odin and Frigga, their marriage is bad. They know this. So they go to another planet to work out their marriage. We don't really see what that is, but Thor eventually goes to that planet to check on them and finds that Frigga has taken up a new identity. She is the god of the hunt. She's working alongside her daughter Angela, and she is riding, and I swear this is a real thing, a giant cat with machine guns fighting off monsters. That's kind of where we left Frigga now. Alright, and reading recommendation number 3 is going to be Thor, Volume 6, Issue 16. It is written by Donny Cates with art by Michelle Bandini, Elisabetta D'Amico, Matt Wilson, and VC's Joe Sabino. This is the episode where Frigga takes up her new role as the god of war. It's very cool, a lot of great images. As you can imagine, her allies are most of the other Thor characters. She loves Thor, she has a soft spot for Loki, especially because Odin can't stand Loki, and she really likes Jane Foster, the mighty Thor. Ever since they rebooted this character, she does have more of a personality. I would say Freyja feels like she's more compassionate, but also because Odin is such a mess, both between being a jerk and just being kind of indecisive, she has to take control a lot recently, and she's able to do that, and she's kind of earned a lot of characters' respect that she didn't have before, but just didn't really have a need for. As far as powers, she's got all the wonderful Asgardian powers. In the Thor movie, she's played by Renee Russo, and we're told that she's the person who taught Loki how to use magic because she is part of Norse mythology. Like, she was brought up by witches and does tricks and stuff like that. I don't know if that's a huge part of her backstory in the comics, but it makes sense because out of the two parents, she's the one that clearly likes Loki more, and she's the one that would teach Loki magic. Like, somebody had to teach Loki. In Marvel Snap, Freyja is a 3-cost 3 power that reads, on reveal, add a copy of the last card you played to your hand, if able. So firstly, in terms of lore connection, it seems like we're going in the spells direction. Loki messes around with your cards and adds them to your hand, so Freyja is going to do something kind of similar. She's clearly designed to work with characters like Thor, so if you're playing a Mjolnir, then you play a Freyja, and then you play a second Mjolnir or a Stormbreaker or whatever, so you can power up a card like Thor pretty effectively. It'll also work well with cards like Surfer, Gambit, Mockingbird. I mean, there's a lot of cards where playing a copy of them again is useful. Honestly, I could see this fitting very well into the Destroy archetype because of how useful getting a second Venom after you've already Venomed some cards becomes, and I guess she'll work well with cards like Quinjet because she will reduce the cost of those cards. I do like how all of the Asgardians have on-reveal abilities, and they like synergize pretty well together. Well, not all of the Asgardians. Heimdall's move for some reason, but the other ones do, and I think that's pretty smart. So I don't know if she's going to be a favorite of this season. I could see a world where she's very effective in certain decks, but I could also see a world where like she can do something that like Nico Minoru can do for 1 cost. However, she's a little bit more consistent, so I don't know. Maybe she'll be useful. And like all the other cards this season, great variants. Ryan Kennard, Eduardo Mello, good, solid start. And then again, a Victor Faro, again, with gorgeous colors that is not locked behind any battle pass or anything. Like, it is just in the general pool of variants that I think a lot of people are going to like. Also cool that she has the hammer. And then the Spotlight version by Andrea Guardino. Fun. Actually do really like the lighter colors here, like those pastels, the pinks and the greens and the yellows. But I think this might be another instance where that Victor Faro variant just ends up being almost everyone's default because it is just so good. Next week, we're doing Malekith, ooh, the Accursed. He's pretty fun. Also, if you're like, why are all the action figures knocked down? Cat. So that happens. Mortimer did that. He didn't mean it. I mean, it'd be funny if he did, though, and he was like, but not Venom and Penguin and Green Goblin. Obviously, they're fine. But like, you know, Agatha, Colossus, Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, they gotta go. So if you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you to Bernardo Tellis for helping me write the description of this video. Here's his Twitter profile. Go check him out. That's all I got. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time.